gathered up the sewing show that goes into detail of all the techniques, tools, and fabrics that come up on the Great British Sewing Bee each week. And we do that because we have more time, whereas the show doesn't. And we're also able to do that because we have, as always, Carol Elaine with us, master tailor and couturier. Hey, Carol.
Hello, Stuart. Welcome to Japan.
You look wonderful there. Look at that. And they're all your kimonos, yeah?
Yes, this is part of my collection, and you're going to see a bit more later on. But, you know, they're all similar. They all have the same kind of neck band and open sleeve, a bit of the open side seam. And, of course, this stand off the neck, which is natural in the construction.
Right.
And this is the most erotic part of the woman's body. And so the face is all made up, but their neck is not. The neck is bare. No makeup.
Wow.
Enhance that more. Of course, it all happens naturally because you have a curved neck and you have a straight band. So it does this naturally. Mm.
Oh, I can't wait to talk to you about it. So it's semi-final week and it's Japan week. And our tutorials are going to be sort of based around that. And mostly our chat with you because you've had some time in Japan, some experiences there. So it'd be lovely to talk about that this episode. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see. It's such a complex culture. But what I love about it is the craft of everything. Everything you pick up or walk past or engage with is beautiful. Absolutely everything.
So when
special.
So when you heard that, this semi-final was Japan week, you must have been like, I can't wait to see what they make.
Absolutely. I was really, I mean, the made to measure I thought was going to be something based on origami, but the pattern challenge, I was really curious. And it was quite simply the kimono.
Oh, well, before we go into the kimono then, let's go back to you then. And when you were in Japan, just talk us through from the start there and what you were doing.
Well, I was invited to go to just see Mike's work over there. And when I went, I discovered the tools and the kimono making, the tradition of that, and had a couple of lessons making the kimono. So they're put together with like a running stitch, and they don't stitch like we do, like this. They stitch back and forth very quickly, make this running stitch out of strong thread, so that when the kimono needs to be cleaned or repaired, they can cut one of the threads and just pull that whole string of thread out, take the kimono completely to pieces, and put it back together again. So can we see that at home? Yes. So all these panels, if any one of them are damaged, they can just be replaced because they're all set in with this running stitch, as I said. So the fundamentals of craft there are really gone into. They spend huge amounts of time, with the tea ceremonies and all these, anything that's built. The woodworking is just unreal, and the bonsai and the flower arranging and everything about Japan is just sublime and beautifully put together. So I ended up getting my scissors there. As I could afford them, I bought another pair. And the smaller sewing tools. And then, of course, I amassed this collection because when people find out that you're interested, they offer you, things, and they're big on presents. So, and I can't wait to go back again. It's
really?
Going to be very slow, going to be slow opening up. But I've been twice, and I'm looking forward to the next time, definitely.
So on the pictures that I'm going to show to the audience now, I see you had a little go at origami. Tell us about that.
So I did. I was a bit nervous because I went to this class and I knew everybody was a master at it. And here I am, sit down, and they give you this whole array of paper, and they said, right, it's time to make a whatever, and one of these, one of those. And so I don't know, am I going to be able to follow on? Do I have my right glasses? Can I do this? But they're very patient, and they are with their teaching. They're so calm and generous about showing you through things. So it was a walk in the park once you get the hang of it.
Well, looking at these cranes, they look stunning.
Oh, yeah. And I think I made one out of a foiled paper, which really brought it to life. And then I was really curious. I said, well, this is great in paper, but what happens when you try this in fabric? And they just happened to have some calico in the studio. So I made a rather floppy crane, but it works.
Yeah.
So interesting to see how our finalists handled the fabric challenge.
Now tell me, did you get a chance to go fabric shopping at all while you were there? How do they do their fabric shops?
Yes, they're very orderly. They're not like the Aladdin's caves that you see in London. You just have miles of bolts on top of bolts, and you have to ask for help. But in Japan, everything is supremely laid out, very orderly. And you see a lot of indigo prints. You also see a lot of what the Japanese designers use, Moschino and Miyake, and those and the likes of that. So you see a lot of pleated and manipulated fabrics. But there's a handmade look to everything, and almost a hand-printed look, which is different. And then just so many silks, impossible to see them all, I think, to fashion into these kimonos.
What can you tell us about their use of colour in the fabrics? Because looking at the sewing bee, and they said they put fabrics into the haberdashery, I felt that maybe the colours that they put in the haberdashery were quite subdued, quite like brick red, dark, muted. And I don't know whether that's a stereotype that they've kind of taken. So can you tell us about what colours you saw there in the fabric, or what use of colour they use?
Yes, I know what you mean, because the prints were not as sophisticated as what you would see in Japan. Everything has that hand-drawn effect. They use a lot of color. They don't miss anything out, but there is a harmony to all the prints, And I think as I look at these, they're complex. It reflects
Absolutely.
The culture.
There's a lot going on in that one.
There is. And I think that's reflected, in the culture.
Yes.
And not doing anything in too simplistic. But yet simplicity is at the base of their culture.
Yes.
But I think when they're designing things, there is a sophistication and a harmony with the use of colors.
Yes.
And they can be quite bold.
I could say that's a big bold and a bigger print than the ditzy one.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's beautiful. It's that floral. That's flowers, isn't it?
Yeah, this is floral.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the colors the flowers are made up of 2 or 3 colors.
Right.
It's just a flat, chrysanthemum. This has really been worked out, and I think that's what you find. And it just draws you in. You're just in this world. You're in this landscape, as opposed to the cotton prints that you see.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the Western interpretation of what a Japanese print is.
Indeed. Or it's when I'm looking on my wholesalers to choose fabric, some of my, when I'm not doing American patchwork cotton, if I go to some of the wholesalers and I click, because they try and genre base everything. So you've got your classics of your American fabrics, and then you've got novelty, and then you've got Japanese, and they will put that in as a like a genre to click on. But every time I click on them, they always seem to be coy or very garden based, and I can't help to think, is this really a stereotype from these companies that are giving us that? And there must be more to the print, just that.
Well, your selection sounds quite limited, and like you say, it's either going to be a koi or a fan.
Yes, yeah. And I don't choose it because I'm like, that's too. It doesn't sit right with me to have that. It's like there's got to be more than that, and it kind of lowers my of that company, that expectation. And unfair then on the Japanese culture that it's based. That I'm trying. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do. And even if you go get a kitchen towel from a Japanese supplier, something that's been manufactured in Japan, or a table napkin, even those small prints, they're hugely intricate and beautifully colored. And so, yes, we're limited with that interpretation here, and I can appreciate that. I feel the same way.
Did you were you able to bring back some fabrics
I
from?
brought back a few lengths. I did. I brought back a lot, so you have to be careful with the luggage allowance and the weights of things. But I thought I took it for granted. I thought, well, I'll get that next trip, and it's 6-9 months I'll be back. But then, of course, the big germ wrecked that, 3 years, not traveling. But no, we'll go back.
Oh, so tell me about these lovely ladies and gents behind you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about this some more. This garment is called a happy. It's HAPPI, happy coat. And it started out as more of a uniform, more of a worker's garment. It's shorter. It's just below the hip. And it has the short sleeve. And forgive my ignorance. Yeah.
Is it just ladies that wear the kimono?
No.
It is?
It's a unisex garment.
Oh, that's what I thought, because we were talking earlier about Mike wearing his one there. Is that right?
That's right. So this one is a coat that is worn at festivals. And this, look how colorful and bold this graphic is. And
look at that, almost resembling the red of the flag, the circular.
That's right. Oh. And this symbol means Matsuri, which means festival.
Oh.
And then this on the front, this is this monogram here that's printed on. This is the company that's putting on the Matsuri Festival.
So this one, and there's no difference between a male and a female. That you can anyone can wear them.
Anyone can wear this. Okay. Now this one doesn't have. This just has the grown-on sleeve, and it doesn't have the slit, the venting on the side, in the sleeve or in the side. So that's a Matsuri festival coat. This one here is a very long one. I don't know if you can see.
I can see, yes.
Yeah, but this one, this is a belt that would be put on before the obi is put on. So this is just part of the layering to fashion the belt all together. And then here I've got this one. This was given to me. I love it. I love the print. I love these beautiful ties that are in the inside.
Oh, look. Yes.
Some of these decorations are so beautiful. And I liked it so much that, and it was given to me by a musician. And there was a concert at the Barbican Hall. And I wore this with a pair of black dinner trousers. And the musician saw me walking in the lobby and she went, "Oh, no, you're wearing a bed jacket.
Oh, no.
You're wearing pajamas." And I thought, oh, who cares? It doesn't look like pajamas to me. It just looks absolutely stunning.
So she got completely the wrong end of the stick then, didn't she?
Yeah, she gave it to me because she knew I was collecting kimono.
Yeah.
But she didn't tell me that it was an evening, nightwear piece.
Oh.
You're wearing a bed jacket.
But it's...
I thought, oh, never mind. I just thought it was so elegant. I mean, they never look out of place, these things.
No. Now, tell me, when we saw the kimonos, which we'll talk about when we get to round one, the pattern challenge, Esme and her friend had designed that specific pattern, and they all had the contrast color. Is that more often seen? Because all your ones there have got, like Deborah did, the same. And I was thinking that, ooh, that's obviously done a lot then.
Well, I've not seen a whole lot of contrast bands, to be honest. Oh. It's more all in one.
Yeah.
And, we showed you that where the lining is split. So the lining is, the bottom half of the lining is the same color.
And that's what Annie did, wasn't it? That's what they all praised Annie about.
That's right. The one thing that these have, I wonder if we can show, is most of these happy coats or these kimonos have a separate piece down the side. So you can see there's a space between this. Now, what the sewers had to do, they were given a pattern where this was closed.
Yeah.
And then something happened between here and here, which wasn't measured correctly. And that's why the lining was short. So that's where that happened.
Oh, so their pattern was obviously done in such a way that...
as we say all the time, we would love to read the directions.
Yes.
Because I don't know how that happened. There would have been some notches that maybe weren't matched up.
Okay.
And this is a beautiful evening piece.
It looks stunning.
Yeah, I sometimes wear this to black tie, but this one has the insignia of the house, the family home here. And it's also, I think there's a few more in the back. Yeah, so you see there's one here.
Look at that.
Isn't it stunning? And then I've made my own belt to go with this, and I just tie a bow in the back. The bow in the front was a little bit alarming when I saw it in the challenge because
is it?
That sort of signifies a courtesan.
Oh, I see.
Okay. A bow in the front. But anyway.
Yes, we'll scoot on there. They are absolutely beautiful. Now I know you're going to treat us. We've got some videos now coming up, haven't we, of your kimonos in their packages.
Yes.
Now, is that how they come if you buy them from the shop, or that's just how they come because of you?
That's how they come. That's how you purchase them. And that's where they live. The kimonos live. You can flat pack them, as you'll see, because they're the rectangular pieces. There isn't any, puffy sleeves or any curved seams. So everything can be flat packed. The kimono is lie down, and then you put the obi and any other bits, and then they're all tied together, and then they're just stacked in shelves in the home.
All right, viewers, you're going to be in for a real treat here, seeing these kimonos in their beautiful packaging. Take a look at this.
So you've seen part of my kimono collection, and I thought I'd spend a little bit of time showing you how they're stored. These are some of my other pieces. They're tied together in these wonderful little parcels that I think are works of art all by themselves. And on the front of this parcel, you have information about the name of the maker, the address, a little bit about the kimono, maybe where it was worn or who wore it. And you have these lovely pictures on the front. Here's a picture of a weaver at her weaving loom. So when you open this up, you might get a glimpse of what's inside through these little windows on the front cover. And when you open it up inside, you have another set of paper wings holding everything in place. And I wanted to show you this one in particular because, a little bit of information on it, we have first the obi belt and then the kimono itself. So these are stored in pairs like this. And some of them are tied with these fabric strings, and some have these beautiful intricate strings made of twisted paper. And I'm not using them anymore. I'm just storing everything flat because I would be so upset if one of these broke. So these are more full-length kimono. And now I want to talk about a different kind of a kimono, different to these more formal garments. And that is called the Happy. It's spelled H-A-P-P-I. It's a much shorter garment to the kimono, but it shares some of the same features. So you have the front band, and you have this square sleeve, and you have this vent. You have this vent here that runs along the side of the sleeve and the side seam of the garment. So I wear these when I work. They're very comfortable, they're loose, and I can carry some of the smaller tools if I'm working on a particular job in this pocket. They tie together on the inside with these different ties. And I liked it so much, I decided to put it into my collection. So the first thing I wanted to do was to compare and contrast a lot of these Happy and to make a pattern for them so that I could then make them up easier. Now, how do you go about making a pattern for something like this? Well, on the face of it, you'd think, well, it looks quite easy because they're more rectangular pieces. But the trickier bit is the neck and how to get that run correct in your pattern work. So I want to show you a little trick about how I go from a garment to making a flat pattern. So I'm going to move over to this side of the table. I'm going to show you the pattern, and I'm going to show you a technique that I use to make a pattern from a garment.
Well, look at that. Do you know, it was like what we call an ASMR video, when you just hear the sounds. When you are undoing and opening those, because it's paper parchment kind of
paper. Yes, it's a very soft paper. You know, they're the great paper making tradition in Japan as well.
Absolutely.
But in the paper can be more like fabric, more fluid.
And I can understand why you were so gentle with it as well, because you don't want to. And that one with the twine, the handmade paper for string.
I know, twisted paper. And then there's a couple of slits in the paper and it's woven through. And it's like, if you're not really careful, you could just pull the whole thing away. Yeah, you have to be really careful with it.
That was lovely. And then the exquisite design on one of them, the drawing.
On the obi belt.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. You see what I mean? Everything has like this hand-drawn quality.
Yeah. And I bet they look beautiful when they're all stacked up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So now, if you want to make your own pattern, which I've often talked with you about, I've got a favorite t-shirt, I want to try and draft my own pattern from that. You've got some tips for us, because I know some of the sewing bee contestants have, over the season, some of them have attempted to draft their own pattern, or try and copy pattern. It's very hard to do, but you've got some tips for us, yeah?
That's it. I mean, you can do what's called a pin through.
Okay.
Look at the garment, just kind of get to grips with the main component parts. And if there's anything, tricky that you want to make sure you get the run just right, then you can use this method of just pinning through the garment. You have to make sure everything is laid out and smoothed and arranged, So to get a flat surface on a garment, then everything else is going to be tipped upwards, so everything fits together on curve. So this works for me quite well. You're not going to copy the pattern exactly, but you're going to get an idea of what the run is, what the curve looks like, and how it fits in.
Oh, okay. Right. Use. Take a look at this and see if we can get to grips with drafting our own pattern from this technique.
Now I'm going to show you my technique for making a pattern of all or part of a garment by pinning through the garment with a straight pin, or you can use an awl, which might damage the garment. It all depends what kind of condition you want to keep your original garment in. And underneath this, I have a layer of materials. So first of all, on my table, I have a cutting mat, and then on top of that, I have 4 layers of domet. You can use any kind of spongy fabric, quilt batting, whatever, and then my pattern paper. Now the reason this is a good idea to have a few layers underneath is because you can set your garment up very flat using these pins, making sure that the area you want to concentrate on is very flat as you can get it. Now this isn't going to be an exact copy of the pattern, but if you have a more intricate run or a fiddly shape, this will be a good way to just set it up, make your pattern, and see what shape it is that you're dealing with. So now, here I have my center back seam. I've got the neck band. This curves around into the shoulder point, which on the kimono is oftentimes a pressed line. So I don't know if you can see that. If I lift this up a little bit, this is the shoulder line. So if we have the center back seam and we have the shoulder line in this rectangular garment, then you can see how this is going to all set up nicely. I'm going to start at the shoulder line, and I'm just going to make a set of pin marks in the line here. Then I'm going to arrange the front, and I'm going to make some pin marks here. This is moving now around the shoulder line. This is the back neck curve. And then this is the center back. Right here, I'm going to make a few stabs so I know exactly where I am. And then I'm going to come down and make this straight center back seam line. So this is just part way to making a pattern. but it's a technique that I'm hoping you can see and just how this is going to work. Now, here we are. So if we connect these lines we have here, the shoulder seam, we have the center back neck point, and we can now trace that line, curve that around into the front of the garment, and then here is our center back. Okay. Now then you can take some tools or some squares and see how you've done. So we can then set this up, you see, trace that off, and now we've got this line. Kimono is such a square set of shapes. It's a very geometrical garment. So anyway, you get the picture, and then you can start to using whatever pattern tools you're using. And you can just start connecting everything. That's going to be more of a straight line. So there we are. So we have your center back here. We have your shoulder. We have your neck point. And then you have your front edge. So that will help you a lot, where most of the garment is very basic in its construction. And this is the trickier bit. And this is just an easy way of taking all or part of the garment and with a few pins and some materials underneath, arriving at a pattern.
Well, who would have known that all those pin marks would have shown up like that, or shown up enough to be able to then draw? But it worked, didn't it?
It's surprising, isn't it? And as you practice that more and more, you begin to realize that you have to put the pin in perpendicular. You can't work on angles because you'll get a wavier line. But yes, as long as you have enough layers of something underneath,
you need that wadding
pattern paper and the surface that you're trying to protect. I've got a pressing unit, a big suction table, and that's very spongy. So I don't need to put anything down underneath that. So, and it's a bigger space, but I showed it like that because most people are working on a cutting table and probably has something, even a towel.
Yes. Yes, just you need that excess space for the pin to go through, so you've probably got a nice hole in that paper.
Yes, and then of course this paper is quite thin, so you have to be careful as well. And when you take your garments away, and then as I was working with the pattern master and a pencil, you've got to be careful that because you've got the padding underneath, you don't cut through the paper. Yeah. So it's delicate work, that.
Yes, and you take your time with that, and it still means you have your garment there to still wear. Because when I wanted to make a T-shirt from one of my favorite T-shirts, I thought I'm gonna have to cut one up. So I unpicked it very carefully to try and then get each pattern piece.
Oh yes, yeah. How did that work out? I mean, did you?
Difficult, very difficult, because it's commercially made. So it's mostly overlocked, and trying to get that undone was difficult. And then it was in jersey, so the seams rolled up even more.
That's right, they're going to curl, aren't
indeed,
they?
Indeed. So it was like, oh well, no. But
nice try.
I'll just have to go to the shops and buy some more.
So let's take a look at what a finished production pattern looks like. All the pieces are here. They're all held together on this hook. And I'm going to need a little bit more space, so I'm just going to move this happy coat out of the way. You see everything's made out of a card, and you can see, looking at each piece, that there's a set of notches here. These tell us what the seam allowance is going to be. In this case, it's at 1/2 inch around this pocket. And also any underlying architecture that I want to put in, a facing, an interfacing, a lining. So at the top of this pocket, which is our facing, I want to put a light fuse there. The next piece that's also going to carry a light fuse is the front band. This piece goes from the back of the neck all the way down one side to the hem, and it also goes from the back neck all the way down to the other side, the left side of the hem and the right side of the hem. So I really need 2 of these to go up to the neck and then back down to the hem, as you see in the kimono garments. But instead of cutting 2 of these, I'm saying let's cut 1 on the fold. So I have twice the length, okay? This is just going to save on pattern paper, and it's also going to give me a more stable shape because I'm cutting 2 layers of fabric and they're both together on this one piece. So that's the band taken care of. And next we have the sleeve, which you'll remember the shape of that curve on the bottom of the sleeve. I have a few notches here where the sleeve is opened. And I have a second notch, or another notch, where the shoulder seam lies. So when we put the front and the back together, we know to match this notch onto the shoulder seam. And again, we have these notches here for our seam allowance, going both ways. It's a 1/2 inch consistent throughout. Now let's look finally at the front and the back. Now, kimonos are cut in one piece. The front and the back are cut in one long piece. This is our front here, and this is our back. It's upside down, so let me just turn it around. Sorry about that. But you can see this shaded area here, as I'm saying, join this to the front. That lays just like that. And here's our neck curve, which we pinned out in that last exercise. And that was very helpful, because these pieces are quite easy, but that was a little bit trickier. So instead of, again, with the front band, instead of having one very long pattern piece, I've split it into 2, and then I join them together when I'm cutting. But when I'm storing them, I want to save a little bit of space. So everything gets a hole punched in it at the top like this, and then the whole pattern piece is stored together. So that's our production pattern, which we made by pinning through and also having a very good look at the garment itself to arrive at most of the shape. And I hope that technique of pinning through is helpful.
So your process, yes, much a nicer, more enjoyable one, even though a bit slow. But we've often said that the slow pace nature of this is spiritual in itself. You take your time. I know we're all het up with the sewing bee and doing it in 5 hours, but actually the realistic side is enjoy the process. Enjoy that happening of what is going on at that time.
Precisely. And now we're back in Japan again, in that whole ethos of just take your time.
Yes.
Everything unfolds and everything will be revealed, in time.
And what is nice about that was I know they talked about Shashiko or Shashiko.
Shashiko.
Oh, there we are. That's, yeah.
It's Shashiko. You don't have to say the E.
Oh, you don't do the middle syllable. You don't do the E, yes, before. Ah.
The I. So it's Shashiko.
So kind of ignore that.
Yes. The middle syllable.
Ah.
Yeah.
I've been quite fascinated with I don't know whether the genre, the idea of the Boro, the repairing over time.
Yes.
And talking about time, that is like that, where you've got a patch on a patch on a patch and running stitch on running stitch, then more running stitches, and it's those lines, isn't it? Beautiful.
Yes.
And that idea of seeing many years on one garment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? And then we're back to your quilting, aren't we?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Because the patches act as that middle layer of quilting.
Yes.
And as you build it up, you do get a kind of a 3D effect. And that means, Shashiko means little stabs.
Now, tell me, with those little stabs, are they going to use, because I've only done it a couple of times and I'd like to do it more on my jeans, are they using super long needles so you could do quite a few running stitches then pull through?
Yes, it is a running stitch, so you can do several at once. I use a 7 darner, which is a sort of a mid, and it's got a larger eye on it because you're using 2, 3, 4 strands of embroidery floss.
Okay, yes. You want it to stand out more, of course, so it would be a thicker.
Yeah.
thread.
In this last episode, the work was featured. His name is Rob, and he has a company called Romar Designs, Romor. And you can get all sorts of tutorials, and you can join an online class. And he's amazing. I've taken a couple of his classes, and his work, Rob's work, was featured. That's when they showed the examples of Shashiko. That's what they used. His denim work. Yes.
Oh right, I'm now looking at him on Instagram as well.
Yeah, definitely follow. And he does lots of beautiful indigo things. There he is.
Oh, I'm looking at it. Oh,
isn't it fantastic?
Oh, look at that cushion.
Yes. Yeah.
Look at.
Isn't that beautiful? And that lovely indigo fabric.
Oh.
And did you see the bed? Did you see the bedspread?
Oh wow!
If you ever come down to North London, let's go. Let's go see his showroom.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Now look at that. Yes, threads and patches.
He does beautiful work.
Boro, or more accurately, Boro, means rag and tatters. I didn't know that.
Isn't that lovely?
There is just something quite exquisite about that, even though it's we're so programmed to get things new and neat and ironed and tidy, whereas actually that, you know, it makes me actually think back to my displays at school. I could never putting a display up on the wall in the studio or in the corridor.
Yeah,
straight lines did my head in, because that you have to spend so much time getting them right. So I would always not worry about that by getting a really long ruler and putting it at the edge and then ripping up against the ruler, and it leaves a lovely torn edge effect.
Oh, yes.
Then you don't have to worry about a straight line, but the effect that it gives, especially if you've got, say, like a coloured paper, and then you rip down, you then get that white showing through. So you've got texture. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're talking about the quality of the print. And when you looked at that, when you showed us that picture of all the fabric that he's collected on his travels, each piece of that patchwork had a really lovely life of its own, or different story to tell. And it wasn't like, oh, this another indigo print. So much richness that you build up over time when you use that technique.
And I suppose, yes, you think back to why they were doing it in the first place, because they were poor and they were fixing their clothes, weren't they? And I know we're looking at it as an artistic point of view, but obviously there's still a more moving, powerful point of view in the first place, isn't there? Yeah.
Part of the Japanese culture is a deep respect for everything. Everything has a soul. Everything has a purpose, even a paperclip, you know? I once left an umbrella. It was given to me, a hand-painted umbrella. I left it in the loo at Narita Airport. I got back to London. I realized I didn't have it with me. I phoned the airlines. They found the umbrella. They found it in the ladies' loo.
Wow.
And sent it back specially.
Wow.
I mean, would that happen here? If you left something lying around of that quality, but there's such a deep respect for everything, so you wouldn't throw anything away.
No.
Everything would be repurposed, has a useful life until the end of time. I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a wonderful chat. And something different. It's always, and that's the beauty of this show, isn't it? We've always been talking about something different each week, whether it was a tool, whether it was a fabric. But today it's been more holistic about the culture and about something new. So that's been lovely. And I bet you've enjoyed getting those kimonos out.
I have. And I'm thinking, where can I wear these next, you know? If I work off-site, if I go to work for someone else, for another company, I bring a happy with me. Oh, and really? I just wear it all day. It doesn't matter what I show up in. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know the dress code. It could be very casual. It could be very smart if it's a West End. But if I put on one of those, I always feel like I'm in a proper uniform and I'm comfortable and I don't worry about it, you know?
And I like what you said on the video, actually. It's got your pockets for your tools as well.
Yes, exactly.
I can imagine you with that with your tailor's awl or your scissors there. Look, tell me about tools before we finish. Sure. They have, and it goes right back to their blades, doesn't it? And the is it the samurai swords and everything like that?
Yes.
Their love for tools and they're precision made, aren't they? They're going to be stunning to use.
Again, handmade, hand carved. Oh, they're phenomenal. I wonder if I do have.
Oh, I love this.
I'll be right back.
You're going to go on a hunt. This is what we love, isn't it?
So I've got, these are my favorite shears. Okay. Now I think you can see they're just beautifully balanced, and just look at that. Look at the shape of the blade. I mean, that's quite different, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It's quite different to the shape of the shears that you're used to seeing.
Can I ask you, we're going back to ASMR again. Can I ask you to open and close them? Can we hear them? Did they make a noise? Wow.
Hardly anything, like a Rolls-Royce door shutting,
Now, tell me what you will do if they get blunt, when they get blunt. What would you do?
Take them back to the maker in Tokyo. So I do have a backup pair.
Yeah, okay.
And if these start to, but I'm so careful with them, I never cut paper with them. I never go near a pin with them. You're careful not to drop them.
Yeah. Are they heavy?
No, and they're really well balanced.
Wow.
They feel so nice in the hand.
Yeah. Well, and if they get blunt, sorry, Mike, we're going to Japan next week. I need some scissors. I'm just booking a holiday.
Be back soon.
Yeah.
I also have, I'll show you, I have quite a selection of scissors and smaller tools. So in the second drawer here, I have all sorts and sizes.
Cool. You're developing a little
Japanese snips. So I've got loads of these, and these are nice. Do you ever use these for trimming smaller threads?
No, but I think I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I'll send you a pair. But again, they're just beautifully balanced. And
you look at that. Yes,
aren't they pretty?
Oh, I can see the sign on there. Yeah. Oh, right.
All right. Yeah, one is heading your way.
But it makes me so passionate for tools that I would like to sell those tools in my shop rather than just some,
Yes. Well,
£1.50 little snips that are churned out at a factory. I would like to get those and stock them because there's something special about that. And I know it's halfway around the world, and we're talking about trying to cut down on mileage, but they're going to be handmade and individual. They're not chucking them out in factories, are they?
No, not at all. And the interesting thing about it is you go to a little back street and you'll come across a little, hardware type store.
Yeah.
And there'll be hundreds of them, all different sizes. Oh. They're not that expensive either. So maybe we can hook you up with a supplier. How about that?
Oh, look at that. Oh, it's been wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on then to Japan week of the semi-final, and let's have a flick through the rounds and talk about that with your experiences, because I know, and viewers, we've got a stunning made-to-measure coming up, and it's not from the sewers in the sewing bee. We've got more to talk to you about that. So let's go into then the kimonos. So round one, we've got Annie Brogan, Deborah Manyi for the semi-final, and they were tasked to do a kimono. It was a kimono. Let's reinforce that and quantify that kimono inspired dress. So Esme and her friend, I think it was a Japanese friend, wasn't it? They drafted this pattern, and they did sort of focus on the collar and the bow, didn't they?
They did. So this one was a fully bagged out kimono. So it didn't have its own hem and then the lining joined on after. The whole thing was bagged out. And what made this complicated was that everything had to go through a small hole at the hem. Now, you could have made that hole as big as you wanted in the hem and made life a lot easier for yourself. But because it had to go through that smaller hole. And as I said before, there was that added possibility of things going wrong under the sleeve and under the arm, that open vent. So the two of the contestants got the lining wrong, Brogan and Deborah, I think. No, Deborah made a mistake on the sleeve.
Yes.
Annie had a perfect offering, didn't she?
Yeah, Mentee got the lining issue and Brogan got the lining.
Yeah, so that could have been down to the directions. And then, yes, I think the sample showed was contrasted. So
it
the
was.
bowl and the, yeah.
And that's where I said to you, because Deborah didn't go for a contrasting collar, did she? And then she had the same lining as the outer, and that must have been hard work.
I know, because you can't, when you're doing a fully bagged out project like that, you can't see what you're doing. You're working on all the outside seams. You know, I mean, you can see everything when you're working on the main body. You can see everything when we're working on the lining, but then when you join them, it's just Clapham junction of seam. You know, and that's but so Annie excelled. She, you know, to sail through that, and the other three had these major problems with it. That really made you think Annie has really,
without doubt, she's
improved
gone
just leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
The one thing I thought about was the bow was just, you know, the kimono is such a beautiful poised piece of you know, construction.
Yes, why would you then want that big huge bow on the front?
And then nobody seemed to tie it very well.
Right.
That really did look a mess. So I wanted to show quickly how you can get around tying a bow easier, right?
Yeah.
And when you tie a bow, you naturally have one of the ends goes up.
Yeah.
One of the ends goes down.
Yeah.
Okay? So always start with the one that's going down. Make your loop, then bring this one under the loop and around.
And through.
And through.
Oh.
And you will always get a very pretty bow. You have to, you know, you hardly have to arrange that. So always start, go back.
That's stunning. So simple. Have I not known that? Yes. Because we tend to go horizontally, don't we? And of course and then you get a mess. You get more twists, don't you?
Yeah.
Look at that. That's exactly.
So anyway, I just wanted to show that quickly, and you can replay it. Makes all the difference, doesn't it? Okay. All right.
Well, it was interesting to watch that round. It was interesting. It was stunning to watch just Annie just breeze through that. And of course, she came first. Mentee second, Brogan third, and Deborah fourth. And I can understand Deborah. She didn't have that contrast. They were clearly looking for that contrast because the pattern, the example was like that. But as you said, she then had that issue with the arm. But there we are. First round, Annie first, Mentee second, Brogan third, Deborah fourth. I forgot to say, did you have a secret one who you definitely did want to go through to the final, or were you just willing them all on?
Oh, I wanted Annie and Deborah to go through.
Oh, okay. So when you saw Deborah then at the bottom, you're like,
yes, I thought, oh no.
Yes, me too. Let's go to the transformation round, which already talked about, the idea of worn denim into Shashiko.
Yes, that's it.
Now, I was kind of, because I have done some of it before in my shop, and I have had an interest in that, as we were talking about earlier, the Boro. I was thinking, how on earth could they give them this to do for 90 minutes? And then acknowledge, I think Patrick acknowledged it's quite a slow craft. Yeah. So he said, but they can use some other techniques as well. And I feel that maybe that's the thing that got them. Some of the contestants thought, I can't spend an hour and a half just hand sewing. So therefore they went to the sewing machine and just put any old thing on. Yeah,
and just really made an applique project out of it.
Indeed, yes.
And I think Brogan used the embroidery as embellishment. She didn't actually use it as patchwork. She just embroidered little stars. So, but then you see just like Annie just sailed ahead in the pattern challenge, Mentee sailed ahead. with this. So she did a lot in that 90 minutes. I think she did 3 separate little bits of Shashiko.
She had the rainbow effect, then she had the lightning bolt, and then the sun.
I said the rising sun, of course. Yes.
And that's where I think she's right. I'm going to use this skill and I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to panic and then fall back to the sewing machine and knock up some embroidery stitches or some patching some fabric down. So that was good to see, because that would have been a risk, wouldn't it?
Yes, but because they gave them bowls of patches and they gave that everything was there.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, instead of changing thread of the machine and you know, having the garment go in and out of that process, if you just have the thing in your hands and do everything by hand, it can go just as quick.
And it goes back to that, what we were talking about, how simple they are. You look at those garments there, how simple they are. Having the faith in, I'm doing this one skill and this one simple skill, but it's going to look stunning. Mm-hmm. And I know that must be hard to do, because you kind of like want, like Deborah, you think, oh, I've got to chuck some of this on, I've got to chuck some of this on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't know whether just doing the hand stitching is going to be enough. But she stayed her course and of course came out top for that. And it was wonderful to see in that short time what she did.
Well, she learned the skill. She knew the skill. She'd done it before, you could tell. And also she had that, you know, she understood the heritage behind it, behind that particular technique. And she was just able to really have fun with it, basically.
Yeah. And that came across. So Mentee was first, Annie second. So a swapping of the two at the top end, and then Brogan third again, Deborah fourth again. So I'm now panicking, like, oh, the one I really want might not go through.
I know. But we know what can happen in the made to measure. We know indeed. You can turn things around. So
we've seen her do it, and we've kind of, if you're going by past programs, we've kind of know that if you pull out a very good made to measure, you have a very good chance of making up for round 1 and round 2. So, and we've seen Deborah do that with Mrs. Havisham, haven't we?
Yes, we did. In
previous rounds. So there was still faith to go. So here we go into the made to measure. Now, this is what I'm really excited about talking about. The use, or they had to use origami to fold and manipulate fabric or sculpt fabric into an outfit. Well, if that was me, that would scare the living daylights out of me. But what about you? You must have been going, oh, yes.
So much scope.
Yeah.
You know, so much scope to work that. So I was thinking that origami is folding paper to come up with a geometric shape.
Okay.
And I want to talk about Brogan, because she started with a geometric shape, but she didn't manipulate anything to get there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
She had an illusion of folding by sewing through the center of the circle and then folding that back and putting another one in, folding that back. So the only folding that went on was actually sewing to create a center line and fold something back.
So kind of, you can understand where the arguments came from then, going off brief or not as on brief as everyone else.
Whereas the other 3 used the folding technique to come up with a geometric shape. So that's, thinking it through, that's where I kind of drew the line.
Okay.
For me, in the criteria. Okay. And I thought Mentee's, although she was told it was actually quite a simple dress, I don't think so. Because to actually take a flat piece of bodice and manipulate this invisible collar, I thought was astonishing.
They seem to have skipped over that. They didn't talk about that in enough detail, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, the dress was busy and it was a little confusing. But I thought if she could have used that technique of this, you know, disappearing 3D, it just disappeared around the neck and it ended up a collar. And there was another detail in the back, which was not discussed. But maybe they just didn't know how to talk about that garment in the right way. They looked at it as 2 different projects.
Yeah.
this elaborate crane and elaborate pleating on the hem and on the sleeves, but that just
yeah.
I don't know. So,
We've often said they do get judged a long time when they're actually there filming. Their critiques are very long, but ultimately the edit takes priority. So you've got your editor and your producer, and they've got to make a decision what Patrick and Esme's critique makes it. So they're almost sifting through, and they might be making decisions on what we want to see. So they might have gone, they don't want to know about the back bit. They don't want to know about the invisible collar. Let's cut that all out. So it is a difficult one there, because they probably got critiqued on it, but they've just chosen not to show us.
True enough. But all the same, it was difficult to look at that dress and then hear it called a simple dress.
Yes, get you. Yeah, because I'm just thinking, because there were on that dress, there were lots of colours, weren't there? And on the crane, do you think it would have worked even better if it was in one solid fabric?
I think it would have, and I think also if it was in smaller scale. And maybe if she picked a fabric that had the sort of print that when you folded it, you disturbed the print so that you could see the lines of the crane. Also, you had the tail in the way of one arm and the beak in the way of the other arm, and it just doesn't look wearable.
Yes.
From that point of view, where Annie just made that crane and put it on as a headpiece, and that was that was a lot more effective, wasn't it?
Yes. And there was something to be said about a solid colour and the shadows created from the origami. So maybe had that crane been smaller on the top, in a solid colour, almost like Deborah's pure white, and then you've got the shadows from the folds and the valley curves, or the valley folds, what you call them, might have also worked.
True enough. And it would have been a lot more successful than, because it ended up looking quite youthful, a little bit youthful.
What did you think of Deborah's Mount Fuji? Were you in love with it like I was?
Yeah, I did. I thought this sculpture of the top was really beautiful. And I thought her interpretation of the sky and the cherry blossoms beautiful as well. I just didn't think there was enough in balance.
Yeah, I get you.
The top half of the dress seemed to overpower the ruffle. The bottom half looked like a very short dress to me as well. But I just thought the top swallowed up what was going on the bottom. And then the cherry blossoms and the sky to be the same exact shape, I thought maybe could have been handled a little differently. Yeah. But that's being a little bit too picky, because I thought the overall effect was really stunning. And with the small headpiece as well. I think it was a really well chosen pattern, cloth, embellishment.
Well, let's talk about cloth. That leads us nicely onto cloth, because they kind of said, perhaps they could use a cotton drill or a taffeta. Is there any cloth that perhaps you thought you might have used? Was it different, or would you have gone for what they gave examples of?
Those were excellent cloths. Anything like that had a strong warp and weft and had the posture to handle that kind of folding and draping and that kind of sculpture. So you wouldn't use pajama silk or something like that. It would have to be, a stiffer fabric that had that, stability to it.
So this is where I'm thinking about Brogan's choice of the neoprene, do we call it?
Neoprene, yes, swimwear fabric.
Now, I'm trying to think perhaps why she chose that. We'll never actually know. But I'm trying to think, there may have been some logic to that. Annie's had these points, almost like the Shard building, these points up here. If you cut neoprene out into that shape, it would have held that shape, wouldn't it? So do you think she chose neoprene because it holds your shape? Not necessarily about the folding, but if you cut it out and you want a sticky up bit, it's not going to go like that, is it? It would hold up?
Depending on the structure.
Right.
The size of it and the structure. So she could have she could have she could have lapped two pieces of neoprene together, sewed it, and then pulled that one down. Would have looked like a fold.
Ah, right.
Could have done that again and brought it down.
Yeah.
You could recreate Annie's dress in neoprene.
Yes. Yeah.
But the fold wouldn't have held. You would have had to stitch the fold down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it depends on how the brief was written for them. And if the concentration was on sculpture and Japanese vibes, nature, then it made sense to me. And I thought, this is wrong. This is all wrong. Geez, I don't know how this is going to happen for her. But I was willing it to happen.
Mm.
I thought it's an easier choice because to put in a zip, an exposed zip, that's not difficult. To come up with a design that you don't have to hem, that's straightforward. Everything was based on the circle. That was straightforward.
Yeah.
And she seemed to be farther ahead. Again, we don't know how the things are cut and pasted.
It came across like that for sure.
Yeah. She seemed to be much farther ahead. It was really beautifully put together.
Mm.
Again, with Brogan, the bust starts are always too high. So the bust start was too high. It's hard to say that, well, as we said, it fits really beautifully, because it's basically a little tent.
Yeah,
with a couple of bust starts, which were not in the right place. But I found myself, as I saw the thing growing and getting complete, I thought, I'm going to like this in the end. It's going to be different, but I'm really going to like it. Her choice of colors really popped.
Yeah.
It looked floral. It looked like it was floating in a pond. It
looked like the lotus leaf that she wanted.
Absolutely. So the fact that it wasn't folded, and I gave this a lot of thought, and that's where I came up with this idea of, if it's origami, it's folded to create another shape. And that didn't happen with her.
Yeah, I see. That idea of sculpting the fabric, that neoprene, could she have folded it in any way? Could she still kept her flower and because she obviously wanted those curved edges. Could she have done fabric at all in any way to get that effect?
But this is a handy segue into something, because I wasn't sure if I was going to show this, but I read a book on what's called curved origami.
No, I don't believe that.
I know, seriously. So I tried it the other day, and I made this rose. Now,
no way.
Yeah, this is quite a curvy.
Can you twist the profile so that the rose faces up? Oh, wow.
So there's that.
Oh, look.
There's that. But you can see it is folded.
Oh,
so
even closer. Come closer.
So it's made
wow.
a series of folds, okay? But then you like a spaceship with 4 fins on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
You put everything to a point at the top, and then you take that point and you twist
swirl it.
You swirl it.
Carol.
See there? So you can get, and then these petals are just rolled back.
Yeah, that's exquisite.
So
Brogan could have put those, like Mentee was trying to on her make, where she did all the pleats around there.
Yes,
Brogan could have done that rather than those.
I think it would have taken a heck of a long time.
Or one big one. She could have had one big one, sort of here.
Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe, but there you go. You're
almost like Mentee's crane. She could have done.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I wasn't going to show this, so I'm glad you brought that up. But she could have taken something, folded it, and ended up with another geometric shape, and that's why I did that exercise.
And then that might have made the judge's decision different, and then made her dress something completely different.
But all she would have needed, as you point out, was just a few of those. Yeah.
And then she would have then nailed that brief, which was the issue, really. When you come down to this challenge, was she folding and sculpting, manipulating that fabric?
Absolutely. And then she would have been a real contender.
Yeah.
Because her dress then would have had, I think, edged out Annie's for impact.
Yeah.
So for me, it would have been very easy And they were telling me, they always say how difficult the decision is going to be. It's going to be really tough, we're going to, well, so what? It's a competition. Make your decision.
Indeed. Yeah.
Have your criteria, make your decision. Yeah. And I would have sent Brogan home.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but that's why you have judges ultimately. That's why you have a competition, isn't it? For people to make those decisions. So it was a shock for sure when they then announced it, because I thought, well, Brogan's going home, or maybe a push Mentee, because if they voted her made to measure, so in that way. So it was then a bit of a shock. I didn't see it coming at all. Even on our chat, we were like, oh, Brogan's going home.
No, exactly. And at that moment, it changed from a competition to something else.
Yeah.
For me. And it was obviously a community of very close people. They got along so well. They were knit together. It was a group. And at the end, I thought, these 4 women are inseparable.
Yeah.
So, and everybody seemed to be slightly upset at the end. So for me, it changed from being a competition, something straightforward, and it turned into something else.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was the judges can't face this.
Yeah.
Something is going on in that room, and they don't want to disrupt it or destroy anyone. So they're going to make it easy. They're just, let's give it another week.
And you base it on past experience. You go, hang on, I've been watching this program for 9 weeks and maybe for 3 years, and it's never deviated from pattern challenge, transformation challenge, made to measure, and the weightings, and you get expectations. You could argue, was it the producers? Was it a twist? Was it a great cliffhanger? And yes, it was lovely to see them all go through, but you still have that pang of, don't you? Because you also see the other side.
Yes, and it's become something else. A bit confused, but hey, we are where we are, and it's going to be a highly anticipated final. This one,
isn't it? Yeah. And wasn't that Annie's garment of the week? Wasn't that stunning?
It was beautiful.
We got because the editing was cut down so much. I didn't see any of how she did the boning in there.
Yes, she just put it into the lining seams, didn't she? She interfaced the outside, and she prepared those panels separately. I would have loved to have seen how she joined the panels.
Yeah.
Because I thought that dress buttoned in the front at first.
Yes, it looked like it. Didn't it come right?
Yeah. Yes, so I would have loved to have seen that. Yeah. Where she would have thoroughly practiced that and understood it, and to make that in 5 hours.
And talking about making it, I think you've made something origami-wise, or you're a mentee of yours.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
I every year, except the last because of COVID, I mentor one student in the hand and lock embroidery competition. This is a global competition. There's student category, professional category, and then there's a textile art category. It's a wonderful array of work. You think embroidery is what you see on a pillowcase or a napkin. Yeah. This is unreal. What can be accomplished with embroidery, it would just blow your mind. They take thin thread and they make these stitches, and they end up with a portrait.
Oh, wow.
Which looks like a pencil drawing. You've got to check into that as well. Look up the hand and lock. But one of my first students, and I wanted to show this because Julia made an origami skirt.
As you talk, I'm going to put it on the screen now for viewers to look at, because it is unbelievable. Oh. Take a look at this. Yes. Wow. I mean, just look at those folds.
Which opened up like an accordion. It was a flat piece of fabric, all pleated up, opened up like an accordion. She brought it in a shoebox every day as we were working on it. And when it was all finished, she started to bead it then. And there you are. Look at the beading that she's done.
The beading is phenomenal.
Yeah. And then if you can see the top of the skirt, because she said, well, I'm going to make a top and I'm going to make a skirt. I don't know how I'm going to attach it. So we talked about making her own buttons and and embroidering the buttons. So she made an embroidery cage around each button, and then made a buttonhole loop out of buttonhole stitches, and then hung the skirt onto the bottom.
That's so...
It just worked beautifully. So that is I had to show you that, Stuart, because that concept of taking a flat piece of fabric and with simple folds, a repetition like that, you come up with another, polyhedron or whatever you would call it.
You've got a made to measure there, haven't you? That could have been on the sewing bee.
And she's now, and they all go on to bigger and better things. Somebody's at Alexander McQueen. Someone else has started her own business. So the hand and lock competition gives you a great stepping stone to professional life and work.
Carol, you must be proud as punch at these individuals.
So
you're like, and I know the feeling you get, because it's the feeling of me as a teacher when I see my students finish at 16 or 18 and they go on to university and they come back and visit me when I was teaching, 5 or 6 years later. They may not be in acting or doing whatever, but they come back because they want to tell you what they're doing. And that just gives a huge glow in your heart, doesn't it?
It's terrific. And I think that's a special gift, to care about what happens to the people that you help out. To teach is one thing, to get good at something is one thing, but to put those two together, to teach something that you're good at, and then get a real buzz out of.
Absolutely.
Everybody wins, it's incomprehensible, the satisfaction that you get from something like that.
Look, we're still doing it today. I know I'm not in school teaching, but I'm with you teaching. We're learning. We get lovely messages from all those comments on last week's video.
There were so many last week, and I look forward to what happens with the winner.
Indeed. And it will be lovely to hear your comments this week. I know it's a difficult show. It was a difficult show to talk about, but I think we pitched it quite right with looking at the criteria and the how and why. And I know you will be really appropriate in your comments when you talk back to us. I had to text Carol, viewers, you'll know, because I was just so overwhelmed with your comments. I texted Carol. I said, "Oh, I hope you've got a smile on your face. You should be on cloud 9," because it's lovely, and I've loved doing this series. It's really grown. We only started last series, and it's really grown, hasn't it?
I'm really enjoying it now. I feel a little bit more comfortable doing this, and I think I just relax into the tutorials now. Trust what I know at this point.
Indeed.
Pick something from the show that I think is worth featuring, and then just put the camera on and just do it. Not a big deal.
Because this is our last tutorial. We'll have a chat next week, because we've obviously got to talk about the final and who wins. But there'll be no tutorial. We will give out the winners. We're going to change the rules for our competition because obviously Patrick and Esme changed the rules, or the production company changed the rules. Every single one of you that posted your 3 final winners, regardless of who you put, you're going to go into the draw. So everyone is going into the draw, Carol. So this time next week, we'll put everyone into the draw, and we'll pull out a name with the computer thing. It will do a random name, and then that person will win all those sewing machine needles. Look at them all.
And you can bet that those are going to be shared far and wide.
Yeah, but even better.
Everybody who wins is part of their own sewing community. And so
and that winner as well gets a masterclass with you, and I'll be there.
Of course, you have to be there.
Me and you, the 3 of us. So if you win, you can either chat with us for half hour. You can give us some advance notice if you want Carol to do a specific skill. Whatever, half hour on Zoom. It will be great. So that's what we're doing. So we're bending the rules too. Hey, Carol.
Why not?
We do that. It's been a wonderful show. I've learned so much, as I always do every week. Thanks for all your time. And I hope you've enjoyed it too, viewers. Let us know in your comments about what you thought.
Please do.
Otherwise, we will see you for week 10, the final of the Great British Sewing Bee, for All Gathered Up. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Carol. See you all.
See you, Stuart. Bye, everybody.